Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, for signing up for Great Means More, navigating change as an authentic leader. Now, I just want to make sure if everybody's hearing me correctly, if you could kindly help us out a little bit on the chat, please type in yes if you're hearing my audio. Yes, yes, in capital letters. I love it. Let's start off the webinar on a really energetic foot. Welcome to Great Means More, navigating change as an authentic leader. In this class, you'll be learning how to identify your blind spots as a business leader, stay true to your values and principles, become more accepting of change in the workplace, and discover best practices in authentic leadership. Now, I'm seeing a couple of people just joining us right now. So if you have colleagues that are running late, please let them know that we are trying our best to start on time. My name is Zoe Rasal. I am the marketing business partner for Great Place to Work Philippines, and I will be your host for today. Now, a couple of reminders for the event. Please be polite, mics off, camera off, hold your questions till the end. We encourage you to take notes for our 45-minute fireside session with the speakers. So again, the structure of this webinar is that we'll have presentations and then we'll have 45 minutes to answer all of your questions. So make sure you hold them all till the end. A recording of this webinar will be available on our website within the next few days. And lastly, unfortunately, at this moment, we do not issue certificates of attendance. Okay, but in case this is your first time attending one of our events, Great Place to Work is the global authority on workplace culture. Our mission is to build a better world by helping organizations become great places to work for all. We believe that that work has the power to transform society. At our core, we feel that the world should be fair, just, and equitable for all people, and that your businesses, are uniquely capable of driving change. With over 10.2 million employees represented worldwide and over 10,000 companies in 97 countries with over 92 languages, and that's a lot. So what we do is in our brand name. We help you prove that your company is a great place to work by delivering the brand power you need to attract the right people. We help you communicate your value to high caliber candidates and offer you one of the most important factors of their decision making. We offer you credibility. So we're the data scientists behind the list of Fortune 100 best companies to work for, but make no mistake, there is no pay to play. So there is no pay to play. We simply help you make smarter people decisions that positively affect your business. Your employees take a survey as short as your break, but as potent as your coffee, and you get the results you need in real time. And from there, our consultants can help you plan your next steps. Now, enough about this. I'll be sharing more about it after the session. So if you're interested to see who we've worked with, why we're so passionate, a great place to work, more about what we do, stick around till the end of the webinar. Now on to the exciting part, moving on to our speakers. Coach Anda Goseko is an award-winning professional certified coach to hundreds of senior executives and their teams. With over a decade of experience, Anda is an expert on steering through challenging environments with a straightforward approach to solving complex team problems, making her the perfect guest speaker for today's topic. Joining us on our fireside chat, yes, hello, Anda. Joining us on our fireside chat is Jack Madrid. Now, if you're in the IT BPM industry, this man is no stranger. He is president and CEO to IBPAP, otherwise known as the IT and Business Process Association of the Philippines. Jack is a seasoned business leader with over 25 years of experience in leading strategy, digital innovation, and business transformation initiatives in various industries and organizations across ASEAN and Canada. So we're also collaborating with IBPAP for one of our lists. And what is a list? I'll talk about that right after the session. So again, make sure you stay until the end. Last but not least, moderating the conversation is my own leader and my own mentor, Antoinette Mendoza Talasig, or Tony for short. And not only is she our managing partner, but Tony is also principal consultant for Great Place to Work ASEAN and has worked in partnership with Singapore government agencies, SMEs, MNCs, and a few Fortune 100 companies across industries and geographies. We've got a heck of an engaging afternoon planned ahead with 3 experts. So ready your screenshots. Please hold on to those questions. We're going to need them later, and enjoy the webinar. Happily passing it on to you, Tony.
Thank you, Zoe. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm really excited about this webinar. But in the next couple of minutes, allow me to just share with you what makes a great place to work. What is the secret in creating a great workplace for your employees? And you as a leader, what do you need to do to navigate through change? Next slide, Zoe, please. So in our over 30 years of research at Great Place to Work, what we find is that a great workplace is one wherein you trust the people that you work for, enjoy the people that you work with, and have pride in the work that you do. All of us who are working, if you think about your organization right now, there are actually 3 key relationships that you have in that organization. First is your relationship with your management. That includes your immediate supervisor as well as the senior leadership team in your company. And what employees want to see from their manager is that they want them to be credible when it comes to decision making, communicating with their employees, and they want to see their managers walk the talk. Have healthy relationship with managers and employees, between managers and employees. Employees also need to see and feel that their managers are respectful, that I am respected not just as an employee, but also as an individual. I'm given the support that I need. I'm given, the flexibility to go for a time off if I need to attend to my family or my personal matters. To also have a high trust relationship between management and employees also need to feel that you as managers are fair in their dealings with you. And this includes diversity inclusion when it comes to pay, and as well as, there's impartiality at the workplace, credibility, respect, and fairness. The second key relationship that you have in your organization is the one that you have with your colleagues. And this is very important, especially for Filipinos. Amongst all these 5 dimensions, we find that Filipinos value that camaraderie that they have with their colleagues. And what are we looking for? What do we want to have with our colleagues so that we can have that high trust relationship with them? It is camaraderie. We want to feel that there's team or even family spirit in the organization, that I was made to feel welcome when I joined. Even when I moved to a different department, I still feel at home. And it's a fun place to work. I enjoy being here, surrounded by my colleagues. The last key relationship that we have is the one that's between yourself and the job itself, the work that you do. And what is important is that we have that sense of pride in the work that we do. I am proud of my contributions in the organization. I feel that my work has a purpose. It's not just a job. I am proud of our contribution to the community, not just within the organization. And I am also, proud that after work, when I talk to my family and friends, I speak highly about the company and what transpired throughout my day. So credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie, this is what we call the 5 dimensions of a great workplace. And in my years of experience working with many best workplaces, I found that leaders play a significant role in creating a high trust workplace culture. It takes all employees in the organization to build a high trust workplace culture. But leaders, like you leaders in this room, you have an important role to play in creating that high trust workplace culture. So knowing this, what can we leaders do to build trust and demonstrate credibility, respect, and fairness, particularly during seasons of change? It has been said that self-awareness is a trait of great leaders. And so as I share some key points to build credibility, respect, and fairness in your team, I want you to pause and reflect on the questions that I'll be asking, and build self-awareness. Like, are you practicing this in your organization? Let's start with credibility. To build credibility to your employees during change, do you keep your employees informed about important decisions and changes? During change, seasons of change, things are vague and ambiguous. Do your employees know the source of truth? Do they know who to go to? And when they go to you, are they able, to engage with conversations that, especially when it comes to, decision points that impact them and the work that they do? As a leader, do your employees see you with a clear view of where the organization is going and how to get there? Do your employees find clarity when talking to you about the situation? or do they leave the room more confused after speaking with you? Third, can your team ask you any reasonable question and get a straightforward answer, especially during change? Even, in normal days, like when there's no massive changes in the organization, we need to recognize that it takes courage for employees to come to you, their leader, to speak up and voice their opinion, concerns, and suggestions. But more so, during time of change, it takes courage for employees to speak up and voice their opinion, especially when there's perceived risk, because there's uncertainty. And last but not the least, very important, do you walk the talk? Do you not confuse your employees with what you say and what they observe you do? This is how we build credibility. Employees need to feel and know that you also respect them as a person and not just as an employee. How do we do this? Do you genuinely seek your employees' suggestions and ideas? Do you ask to be perceived as collaborative, but then you already have fixed ideas and decisions in mind? You just engage them, but your mind is fixed. Your employees would know that, they would sense it. Again, do you involve them in decisions that impact them? Are you appreciative of your team and the contributions that they make? Do you express your gratitude sincerely and not just because you have to? When try new ways of working, do you count this as part of doing business? Are you not quick to blame or reprimand? And do your employees feel and know that you genuinely care for them? These things, do you consistently show this through your words and also through your actions? The last point, the last dimension is fairness. To have your employees trust during uncertain times, they should see and perceive you as a fair leader. Do your employees feel that they are treated fairly regardless of their demographic profile, their age, gender, race, or whatever demographic profile they represent? And do you also consider these differences, their uniqueness as you plan these organizational changes? Do your employees, regardless of their position, feel that they are a full member in the organization? People tend to form cliques when there's ambiguity, and really it's human nature. It's our attempt to find clarity, to go with people, ask them what's going on, validate how we're feeling, and get clarity and direction. And you as a leader, when you're aware of these cliques, or if there's any politicking in the organization, how do you address this? Do you address it boldly and yet kindly with empathy? And if someone feels unfairly treated, is there a platform where they can find a safe space to share their complaints and find justice? How did you fare in these questions? How are you leading through change? I like this quote by John Maxwell. It says, "The pessimist complains about the wind. The optimist expects it to change. The leader adjusts the sail." Oftentimes, when we go through change, we put so much emphasis on, the change itself, the new technology, the new structure, the new process. But a wise and caring leaders are first to adapt through the transitions by adjusting their communication and leadership style. They adjust the sail. Because great leaders, they value staying connected with their people. They know that it takes the entire team to successfully effect the change and to reach the other side. Employees judge the leader's credibility, respectfulness, and fairness through our behaviors. But really, beneath those behaviors is the core of the leader. And so in the next segment, I'm excited about this. Coach Anda will bring us deeper and share some practical tips on how we can remain true to our core as we navigate through change. Hi, Anda.
Hi, Tony. Hello, everyone.
I'll pass it to you, Anda.
Okay, let me just share my screen. So we are in a world that is changing at a very fast pace. I have been coaching many leaders and for the past 13 years, but in the last 2 to 3 years, things have been going really fast. And most of the things that I've been talking about with them had to do with accelerating growth. Of course, the things that are happening with COVID, with the environment around us. And it's really about how leaders are able to cope with that change and how the teams around them are able to cope with that change also. So think about your own situation as a leader in the past few years, and think about your teams as well. And think about also the challenges that you've been having as a leader and with your teams. So there are many things that have been happening all at once. And so what makes change difficult? There's this famous line by a psychologist, I forgot his name, but he said that what you resist persists. So I believe that the more you resist something, the less acceptance you have. But the more that you accept that the change is there to stay, the more you're able to find creative solutions. So what we need to do during times of change is to move towards acceptance, move towards that this is the reality in front of us right now, not wishing that it was something else, but facing it. And being able to do that with full acceptance is you're able to really find more creative solutions. So again, that's also going back to you as a leader. And the question is, how are you helping your teams accept the changes? And how are you making them agile? I always tell this line to all my clients because in executive coaching sessions, and we usually do sessions from 6 to 8 months, they go through a lot of changes. Of course, these are positive changes that will help them become better leaders and a better team. So for me, change is a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. So change is a process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And I think the most difficult line or the most difficult word here is to unlearn something, unlearning. And that's very difficult sometimes because you're so used to doing something and you're so used to certain habits that to unlearn something and to change the way you're doing something can be very difficult and unnerving, right? So what do we do with all this push and pull and the many changes that are happening around us? So I'd like to compare it to a captain of a ship, right? So captain of the ship, he's there in the open sea, and there's a storm around him, and with him is his crew. So how do you stay stable during a time when there are waves, there's a typhoon around you? And this is the answer. As a captain of the ship, what is your anchor? What is your anchor? So as a leader, do you have an anchor? Do you know yourself very well? Do you know who you are as a person? Are you anchoring on that? And that is so important right now in the world we live in today. So the main question really is, who are you at your core? And it's very interesting, when I go into the first session of like I said, 6 to 8 month sessions with the leaders that I help coach. A lot of times I ask them, who are they and where are they going, right? And what is important for them? It seems like a very easy questions to answer, and sounds very simple, but very hard to answer actually for a lot of leaders also. Because I think with the busyness of work, sometimes it's a lot about doing and doing things all the time without really taking a step back, to see, where am I now as a leader? How have I grown? How can I make things better? And because there's so much pressure to deliver the goals, there's so much pressure to deliver the results. Leaders are not able to just take a step back and look at, who am I and who am I becoming as a leader? So the question again is, who are you at your core? What are your values? What is important for you? Is it courage? Is it empowerment? Is it collaboration? What are your values? Is it integrity? What are your beliefs? What are the things that you believe in? And if you're working in an organization, what are your beliefs about how you should operate, or how your team should operate? And a big question that I've been asking a lot of leaders since the beginning of the year, it's just February now, but I still have these conversations with my clients. What have you learned? what have you learned in the past years, or what have you learned last year as a leader? Because if we don't take stock of what we have learned and the stories about ourselves on how we've grown, we forget about them. And that's the importance of taking that step back to look at, who am I as a leader? What's important for me? What are my beliefs? And what am I learning as a leader? What's my story? And using that as an anchor, when people hear that, that makes you really authentic. That makes you, it's like your DNA, your uniqueness about you. And when people are able to see that, they're able to relate to you more. You become more real as a person, as a leader. You become more influential also in a positive way. So this is very, very important. And this is the core really of how I coach people. And this is so powerful. And later on, I'm going to share you how the results of this is, because coaching at your core is a powerful way to really create impact and value to the organization. So when you look at who you are and where you need to go, you also need to ask yourself, if I want to go there, what do I need to stop doing? So this is a very challenging question. Whenever I ask leaders this, they just take a step back, because these are the hard truths that people have to face. So if you really wanted to empower your team, so I've had these conversations. I really, the goal is, I see myself as a leader. I want to empower my team. I want open communication. But in reality, is that really happening? And so I go through a process of getting feedbacks from their stakeholders, and they're faced with the reality of really listening and hearing that it's not happening the way they want to. And that's where growth lies, when you're able to face the truths, when you're able to ask yourself the question, what do I really need to stop doing that's not making me effective? What have I been avoiding? And how is this affecting the work that I'm doing if I keep on doing it? So example, let's say if your goal is, I want to be able to empower my leaders, the next in line leaders and my team, but in reality, you're not able to do that. You're still micromanaging, or you're still not trusting them, or you're still doing the work for them. And that's not really the true sense of being empowered. So a lot of times we want to do something, or we want to be that person, but it's the environment sometimes that triggers us, because of expectations from our boss, maybe from our stakeholders, our peers, from the environment. So sometimes we're not aware of how that really triggers us. So as Tony said earlier, self-awareness is so important. If you're not able to be aware of who you are and what triggers you, the environment can just swallow you up. And you can just be more of just going with the environment, instead of just being deliberate, taking a step back, and really reflecting and making the right decisions. So what do you need to stop doing? And so I want to say that what's important today is to be able to just put the major things I've been sharing with you. The first one really is to really know yourself, know what's important for you, know what your values are, and don't just keep that in your head. I want you to be able to write that down. It's really different if you have a conversation about it with someone and you write it down and you see it. Because when you see it, then you can ask yourself, am I being this kind of a leader every single day? When I wake up in the morning and I lead the whole day, was I able to do that? And a lot of times also, I ask the people that I coach at the end of the day, ask yourself this question: was I able to lead in the way I wanted to lead? Or was I able to lead with collaboration? Was I able to be an open communicator? Was I able to lead with respect, with empathy? So whatever goals you had, whatever is true for you, whatever person you want to become, you have to be able to lead with intention, right? You have to be able to lead with intention. You have to be very deliberate, and you have to be very consistent. Again, easier said than done. And what makes it so difficult? It's difficult because things get in the way, and we're being stretched all the time. Again, the environment is going so fast. We can be so reactive instead of reflective. And what I really want to call for in this webinar is to be more reflective leaders, to be more deliberate, to find ways every single day to be a better leader. So it's being deliberate, it's being consistent, And overarching that is to be able to lead with intention. I try to practice that as well as a coach. I try to think about what is my intention for this year and how am I able to do that. And the best way to check really if you're able to do that is to have those daily questions, to ask yourself at the end of the day, was I able to do that? And at the beginning of the day, you tell yourself, I want to be this kind of a leader. And so that keeps you anchored. That keeps you authentic. That keeps you true to who you are. I don't know if you're familiar with James Clear. He's one of my favorite authors. He wrote Atomic Habits, and this is the diagram that he shows in his book. And I love understanding what drives people. I love understanding what makes people tick. I love understanding motivation. And here you can see what motivation really is. And because James Clear talks about the micro habits that you do every single day will make you a better person. And I think he did a study that if you do that better every single day and you're more intentional about it, next year you'll be 37% times better. So it shows you the power of being intentional. It shows you the power of consistency every single day. But to be able to do that, you wonder, why do people, even if you're intentional about it, why doesn't it happen? So a lot of it also is about being able to know what motivates you, know what environment that you need to set up for yourself to make that happen. So each of us, each one of us here performs well in different kinds of environments. So you have to be able to know also what environment works for me, what motivates me, what drives me, what will keep me consistent, what will keep me at the top of my game. And to know that again is to be able to manage the environment around you. A lot of people think that the environment manages them or controls them. No, it's not true. You can actually manage the environment with the way you perceive things. I want to introduce you to another model where the question on what will keep you on course. So if you want to stay on course, I also got certified with Marshall Goldsmith. So he's one of the top coaches in the world. And he released a book a few years back called Triggers, and he introduced the Wheel of Change. And the Wheel of Change shows what should we create, eliminate, accept, and preserve. So I'll just go over it a little bit to make you think about this with yourself. So creating is more of the goal. What do I want to create? So let's say I want to be more fair or open-minded when I talk to people. I want to treat them more with respect. So let's say that's your goal. And then what do I need to stop doing? That's eliminating. So maybe I need to stop judging them. I need to, in every meeting, I need to give them space to talk. I need to be able to be more objective, right? So I need to be able to respect the strengths of people. Accept. Maybe you also need to accept that some people are not like you. Some people are different. And you need to accept that I need to understand other people, and then because they're different. So it's what you need to accept about the environment. Of all the four things here, actually accepting is my favorite one because it's hard to accept. It's hard to accept certain things about realities. So I think the more you accept it, again, the more you are able to find solutions to it. And the last one is preserving. So preserving is to be able to use your strengths to be able to navigate the change. So what do you need to preserve? What's going to help you? What are the tools in your internal toolbox that's going to help you make the change happen? So again, what will keep you on course? And I hope this model is also helping you think about these questions. What do I need to create as a leader for 2023? What do I need to eliminate? What do I need to accept? What do I need to preserve? So what is the impact of leading from your core? Or what is the impact of being a more authentic leader, right? Your core is who you are inside, right? So there's a lot of things happening again outside, but what's happening in your core? So the impact of that, that's why, like I said, I've worked with many leaders. It's actually helped leaders get double-digit growth. I've also helped leaders get high engagement scores. I've also helped leaders get awards. And it really translates also to ROI. So sometimes in the beginning, maybe some people think that it's kind of soft, or maybe it's not that important. But it's really like if you're thinking about the business strategy, it has to be closely linked, or it has to be really in tandem with the people strategy, because who runs the business? People. So it's very important to think about the people who are behind the business, the leaders who are behind the business, the teams that are behind the business. So if you're able to not just help yourself be an authentic leader, to lead from your core, think about the impact that you're going to be able to have if you're able to help your teams lead with their core. So it's very important for you to be able to also not just apply that to yourself, but it's a question on how can I create teams that are that way, that are strong enough. They're strong enough to make the right decisions, are strong enough to be able to know themselves, to navigate the storm that's up ahead or the changes that are coming up. How do I create more teams that way? And it makes them stronger, cohesive, and it makes you be able to reach the goals together. So that is the impact of leading from your core. So my question now for you is, who do you need to be for 2023? Who do you need to be for 2023? And I want you to think about this question because I want you to type your answer in the chat box. And there's an exercise that I've been doing with the leaders since New Year. That's why they're fireworks. They're happy 2023. But what you need to think about is a word that has captured all your reflections from our session today. So thinking about my own story as a leader, my values, my work environment, the future of my work, the person I need to be. How do you capture that in one word? So I've had people say like things like, I will be the bridge, or I will be the communicator or the collaborator. I will be open-minded. It could be anything. It could be a word, could be a action word, could be an adjective. So it just has to be one word that every time you wake up in the morning, it's like snap, you're going to be that person, right? You're going to be that person. So and this is very powerful. And I just want to share with you that Idalyn Diaz, who won the Olympics, right? So she also used this power word. She had, before she lifted the weights, she had the word like one motion. So before she lifted the weight, she thought of one motion and she thought of winning, and she became that. So that's why you have to be very intentional. So let's think about that word right now. Who do you want to be for 2023? So I want you to type that in the chat box. And maybe I can start. So for me, I want to be a connector. I want to be a connector. So that is my word for 2023. What about you? Can you type that in the chat box? And Zoe, maybe you can read that for me, what everyone's saying.
Absolutely. So we're getting some really good answers here. We've got brave, anchor, coach, intentional, inspire, consistent, light bulb, encouraging, humble, resilient, self-aware, patient, empathetic, balanced, empowered, aligned.
I love that. That's so powerful. I mean, just hearing that from everyone, right? Don't you just feel so empowered and excited for 2023 when you have that? That's great. So I just wanted to leave you with my favorite quote, Marshall Goldsmith. He said that what got you here will not get you there. I want you to think about this, because what got you successful yesterday will not get you successful today, will not get you successful tomorrow. Maybe there are some things that you can use that are going to get you successful that you have used before, but there are some things that you just really need to stop doing that's not helping you anymore. And that's why there's this line, what got you here will not get you there. So if you want to connect with me, this is my website, www.coachanda.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post almost every day. So look for me, Anda Goseco. If you have some questions or you want to learn more about executive coaching and team coaching, which is what I do, and that's my forte, you can connect with me at coachandagoseco@gmail.com.
Thanks, Anda. Very helpful points. Lots of pointers. I was I have lots of post-its here, writing down notes, all the questions you're asking so that I can also reflect later on. But you know what's interesting to me is that when we ask ourselves that, okay, what do I need to do to navigate through change? Probably top of mind, we're looking for what tools, what platform, what training. But then hearing what you shared, it really goes back to, okay, who am I? What's my core? And that's, from what you shared, that seems to be the weapon to navigate through change more than the platforms or tools or training. It's knowing who you are. Together with us now is Jack. Hi, Jack.
Good afternoon, Tony and Anda. I enjoyed listening to you both.
Thanks. I'm really happy to have both of you here. And so before we start, allow me to thank you again, Jack and Anda. Thank you for joining me in this webinar. I've said this many times before during our pre-event briefing and even on my LinkedIn posts. I'm very excited about this session. I know that the audience will learn a lot from both of you, from Anda, who is a renowned global executive coach, and Jack, who is a seasoned leader whose influence go beyond his team and beyond IBPAC. Like Jack's leadership positively impacts the largest industry in the Philippines. So again, thank you. So in the next 45 minutes, this is what we'll be doing, okay? I will be asking you a series of questions about leadership and change. And we want to hear your authentic leadership stories, both of you, your values, your principles. And since, needless to say, this is a webinar about authenticity, I want to thank you both in advance for allowing yourself to be vulnerable to us as you share your stories. So this is a virtual room with more than hundreds of leaders. So I trust that this is a safe place for us to share. Okay. We also want to give the audience some time to raise the questions. So pardon me if I cut you at any point, just because we have lots to cover in a limited period of time. So let's begin. You ready? So to kickstart, here's my first question for both of you. Jack and Anda, what does authentic leadership mean to you? Ladies first?
Okay, go ahead, Anda.
Sorry, Jack.
Okay, so for me, it's also what I said earlier. It's leading from your core. It's knowing what your values are, knowing what's true to you, because being authentic is being true, right? And I think also it's not being afraid to just be also vulnerable to your team, to showing not just your strengths but your struggles as well from time to time, and so that makes you more real and relatable to others. So sometimes it's hard to be authentic, sometimes it's hard to show that, but I think it's also important, so that people can use it as an anchor, and you also, the more you do that, also you're more also self-aware. And I think self-awareness is so important in leadership because, again, it helps you manage yourself and then the environment around you.
Thanks. So being true to your core. How about you, Jack?
Well, for me, and this has been what I've practiced across my different roles over the past decades, has been, the capability to get my teams to trust my motives. And I can't really get the desired outcomes wherever, whichever environment I work in, if I don't have that. So one of the first things I try to do in my attempt to be authentic and a true leader is really to get them to trust my motives. And that comes with complete transparency and honesty, and most important of all, consistency between what I say and how I act. And that has to be done every day, every meeting, every conversation. And that's the only way I think you can prove and show how you really are. Because over the period of time that it takes to do that, it becomes very hard to fake. You can't fake true leadership. So I think it's really that capability to get the trust of my team as to why I am saying and doing what I do.
That's true. I like that. It's difficult to fake true leadership. But you see, as leaders, we're a person, we're humans. And in our interactions, it's a choice, right? Like it's unconscious, but every day it's actually a choice. It's a choice that you make to be true. It's a choice that you make to remain true to your core, to revisit your values, that we make to walk the talk, as Jack said, so that our team will trust our motives. They will see the true motives. The reality is they see it. Like they're smart enough. They would see it, especially through time. I know Anda touched on this a bit in her presentation. And so you cannot fake true leadership, as Jack said. But why is it important? Why is it important for you to stay at your core and to walk the talk and for your team to trust your motives? Anyone?
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing I want to say is my team and all the employees of the company deserve the honesty. They deserve they deserve the truth, and I think they won't put up with anything else other than that. So that is easier said than done. Of course, you have to prove that over time. But for as I said, for the previous question, this has to be done over a period of time, because it's really something you cannot pretend. The truth eventually comes out. So,
There's such respect there in the person that that you are leading, thinking that they deserve the truth. They deserve to know my true intentions. That's such a deep respect. How about you, Anna? Why is it important to remain true to your core?
Well, I just want to also agree with that also as well. That I like that they deserve it, right? So they deserve it because you care as a leader. That's why you're a leader. You need to care for your team. It's all about people as a leader. And you're right, Jack, that it takes a while actually to be able to build that trust. That's why I mentioned earlier in the presentation that consistency is so important. You have to be very consistent, and sometimes that's hard for some people to stay consistent. That's why you have to be intentional. You have to think about what you're doing. You have to reflect on your actions also. You have to notice the impact. So so I agree with you, and I like what you said about it's really all about your people, because it's all about taking care of them. And I think staying true to yourself also helps you make better decisions, because sometimes when you make decisions that are out of emotions, right, or panic, or it's fear, or all those negative things, it takes you also away from your core, and you end up making mistakes. So I think if you're able to just be to use your strength in your core, you're able to just think clearly. You're able to really ask yourself, is this aligned with who I am as a person? Is this aligned to who I want to be as a leader? And that helps you make those better decisions every single day.
Yeah, staying true helps you make better decisions. I think it anchors us, right, as a person, especially during change. Like if you're true to yourself, then you're able to remain anchored, whatever is happening, whatever is going through. In the Great Place to Work Trust Index survey, there is this one statement: I can be myself around here. And in that particular statement, we want it to have positive responses, because that also shows that, okay, our employees have psychological safety here. They can be themselves at the office, at work, in their interactions with us as their leaders. But you think about it, if we encourage our employees to be themselves at work, then all the more it's important for leaders to be themselves at work, to be their true selves, to be at their core. Because at the end of the day, as leaders, we are role modeling the behaviors that we want the employees to have. So I've seen this TED conference. Do you guys watch TED conference, TED talk? There's this one by Harvard professor Francis Fry. It's about how to build and rebuild trust. Okay, some of you have probably seen this. I watched it many times. And in that talk, she said, to be authentic, you need to be you. again, being at your core, to be authentic, you need to be you. I thought, like, isn't that easy? Like, shouldn't that be so easy? You just have to be yourself. But I'm curious. I want to ask the audience, and you can chat your response on the chat, chat box. The question is, do you find it easy, before I ask Jack and okay, do you find it easy to be yourself at work? Just yes or no. I think there's a poll that's coming out.
Yes, Tony, we've launched a poll. So we're seeing in real time the percentage of people so far. We're seeing a close gap in between people who are saying yes, about 48%, and people who say it depends at 43%.
What's the final count? Denise said here in the chat, it's easy if your leaders and your teammates create a safe space for you to be yourself fully. What's the final count right now, Zoe?
Okay, so we're at 41% for yes, 10% for no, and 49% for it depends.
Very close, right? Very, very close. Thanks, Zoe. Thanks, everyone. I want to ask, you've worked with many leaders and executives globally. So in your experience coaching business leaders on how to lead great workplaces, do you think it's easy for leaders to bring their authentic selves at work, or do they find it difficult?
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
I mean, they start with good intentions. And a lot of times, like I mentioned earlier, I work with a process where they give feedback about the leader, right? So, and sometimes the leader gets surprised, like that wasn't my intention, but why is it coming out that way? And I think studying leaders over the past 13 years as a coach, I've seen that a lot of it really has to do with the expectations of the environment. So like it's like sometimes that push and a pull. The environment expects you to be like this or to think this way, and sometimes it goes against also to who you are as a leader or what's true for you. So I think you need to be able to create a balance of when is it going over, when are you not being true to yourself anymore, or when you're also losing yourself in the process and not making the impact or the value that you want to create. Yeah, and I think a lot of times also people have these assumptions also about who they need to be, right? And so if you have those assumptions, sometimes it can veer away to what's true for you and what's good about you. And so a lot of like example, like one of the leaders I work with, she was very pressured to deliver all the time, and so I'm sure a lot of leaders get that. And because she had that high pressure environment, she became like a really pushy leader. She was aggressive and she wasn't really listening to people anymore during meetings, and that was her interpretation of the environment. And she realized that what she really wanted was not that, and that was not coming out. So that's what I mean by being aware of what triggers you also every single day, because that kind of veers you away from being true to yourself at your core.
That's very interesting. And yeah, like while inside we want it to be true, the environment factors come into play, and then those triggers as well.
Yeah.
Jack, thanks for sharing that, Anda. Jack, you are a leader, as I've mentioned earlier, not only to your team, not only to the organization IBPAP, but you're an esteemed leader in the industry. Allow me to ask you a question that might make you feel vulnerable a bit. I'm just curious if you can tell us a story or tell us about a time when you felt unsure or uncomfortable, like unsure how you can be yourself. Has that ever happened to you?
Every day, every hour happens. It takes a lot of, I think the foundation of being authentic is really, I think it starts from true humility. Because I think it's hard to exhibit that, to admit it to your team, because we have this stereotypical expectation of leaders either having all the knowledge, knowing everything, or having limitless courage, but that's not really true anymore, especially in the world of work today. And I think what I've found for myself, at least with my team, is having the humility to admit what you don't know. And for me, that's very often. And showing vulnerability, which also happens because we're in, we're in perma crisis mode today in not just my industry, but all over, and we're just in the middle of trying to figure it all out. So I think it begins with humility, and I guess my simple answer is really admitting that you do not know all the answers, and that you want to you know and trying to extract uh, what the team uh, making the team believe that, and then maybe once you have, and that's part of the trusting the motives thing, and then maybe as a group begin to figure out what the answer might be. And so just admitting that you don't know all the answers all the time, but then making them also know that when the time comes to make the decision, you have to trust that the decision will be made. And that's really what ultimately my job is. But I think listening uh, to the voices of your team members in an authentic way, I think, again, that's easier said than done, because I think communicating is still an underrated skill. A
Yes.
lot of people think they're good communicators, but they're really not, right? And I think a big part of communicating is true listening. We can talk about that for hours. So I don't know. I just thinking about that right now makes me feel unsure of myself already. So I think it begins with humility.
It is, like, it's I don't know if counterintuitive is the right word. It's like, as a leader, you are expected to know things. It's like you are there for a reason, and it must be good. And I guess that's also part of, the traditional ways of doing things. Like, you have that persona of what a leader should be. But in my own experience, what's also interesting is that if you're humble enough to admit that you don't know, and then open the table for discussions, that's actually where you find the real answer. You find it from the people themselves. It's just admitting that, just with my limited experience, my limited thinking, humbly admitting that. And you don't even have to say it up front. Sometimes it's just the way you communicate, the way you ask, it will show. And then often when you open it up to everyone, that's when you find the brilliant ideas. It doesn't have to come just from us as leader, but as you said, I agree. It takes humility to do that. And Jack said something interesting. Communicating is underrated. And I saw you nodding.
Yeah.
You want to comment on that?
Yeah, that is the problem I work with all the time. As an executive coach, one-on-one coaching, it's a lot about communication. And also with, because I do team coaching as well, I coach teams, it's the same problem. And I think it's because so many, like Jack said, so many things to say about it. But let me try to sum it up. I think it's really a lot about also people assume things about certain people. So, and then that's where the difficult conversations happen, right? So not looking at people with their whole self, or respecting them, or imposing certain things to them. And I think it's also a lot about, in coaching, we have a skill called active listening. And active listening sometimes is being quiet. And sometimes as a leader, because we're used to just telling people what to do, we're not giving them space to really listen to what they're actually saying, and we're interrupting. So I think that's a skill really that needs to be learned, and to be fully present with someone. When you're fully present, you're also able to see everything about that person, like even the what they call the facial expression, the tone of voice, the words that they're using, and just seeing the alignment or the misalignment that's happening, because that's already going to help you answer or solve a lot of things as well. So I see this happening right now with so many leaders and teams. And I think it's because it goes back to everything's just so fast paced. Let's just do it like this. But communication, because takes time, it's a process. It's you have to be patient. You have to converse. So yeah, that's why I was in full agreement with what Jack was saying. It's a challenge. It's an easy word, but it's a challenge to do. Even not just at work, but even outside work as well. You see that happening. That's why there's so many books on difficult conversations, because conversation can be a challenge.
Yeah, you know what I'm getting, from what both of you shared right now is that, yeah, and I'm also seeing it on the chat. Like Ryan mentioned about how, I think it was Ryan or someone else, is it Abby, someone who mentioned that, Abby, I think, who mentioned about how fast things are because of the technology, all of those new changes. But the pace of leadership, you can't rush it. The growth of a leader, the effectiveness of a leader, it's not something that you can't rush. It's not like a microwave oven thing that you just put in, you come out, you're already a fantastic leader, that you go inside a room, talk to your team for an hour, and then you can already say, I had a very good communication. It's not. There's a lot of things that's happening within that meeting, our meeting with your team, with someone, with a person, that would already say that, okay, that was an effective communication, that was effective listening. And often it's how that person feels after that conversation, right? Like you just made that impression. I think one thing that I also caught there is what Anda mentioned earlier. It takes deliberate and intentional approach to be a great leader. Now, moving on, right? Last year, after 2 years of the pandemic, we saw many organizations transition their employees back to work. I read about this in our culture audit. Like a lot of companies adopted hybrid work setup. Some companies gave flexibility to their employees, and some even gave other benefits because of the employees' changing needs. I know, Jack, you're very familiar with this situation. Last year, you actively supported IT/BPM industry as thousands, literally thousands of employees in the industry transitioned back to their offices. We're all hopeful, right? Like after this, quote unquote, after the pandemic, people have transitioned hybrid work. We're like, okay, we are waiting to be fully settled. But then economic uncertainties happen. We hear left and right, companies laying off, organizational restructuring. And then, of course, all of this has increased the ambiguity. To me, as I was reflecting on this, I was like, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we know the enemy, right? Like it's COVID. But right now, there's just so many things happening in many different organizations that we don't know. What is it exactly that's causing this? What's bringing out all these changes? I'm curious, Jack and Nanda, in your experience, in your conversations with other leaders and in your own experience, what have you observed to be the common and unique challenge that leaders are facing right now, like right now in 2023 at the beginning of the year? Do you want to start? Yeah, Jack, please. Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to say we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think this weight and burden of expectations and the pace of work and change will not stop.
That's
I mean,
true.
this is not a pandemic that will just end. This I think the next phase post COVID, it's actually accelerated the uncertainties, and I think expect just to expect that this will calm down. I think it's not the right way. I think we need to get comfortable with this constant uncertainty, and I think our teams need to this is part of the vulnerability again. Teams need to show that, okay, he's showing, or he or she is being vulnerable, but it's okay, because through that, whether you call it core or a part of that is being showing agility, and showing confidence in the midst of uncertainty. So I think it's tough, right? Because of the burden of expectations. You're supposed to know everything. You're supposed to be strong. You're not supposed to show vulnerability. But I'm trying to get even more comfortable in showing that I'm experiencing the same thing.
Mm.
And I think letting them see that, while listening to to all their voices. I think part of it also, I'm just going around the whole thing here, but I think it's important to let your team know that they are being heard. And I think that's probably one of the best pieces of stability that you can encourage in the workplace. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but that was my instinctive answer.
Thanks. No, it makes sense. Like I was honestly looking for like, okay, what are the changes that's happening right now? What are the challenges? But I think what you're saying is that there's just too many and it's not gonna stop. So the key is we need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Right. Get it right. Yeah. How about you, Anna? Thanks, Jack. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so for me, I just want to give you an example of a leader I'm coaching, and that person symbolizes a lot of the leaders, what a lot of the leaders are going through right now. So he's actually a next in line CEO of a big company here, and I'm coaching him on that. And the company is going through a lot of big changes. And so being that kind of a leader, experiencing that's difficult, diba? And it's helping the whole organization go with him with the change. And there's a lot of resistance happening. So I think going back to what Jack also said earlier, it's a lot about conversations. So having those conversations with people, alignment. I can't stress that enough, how alignment conversations are important, because sometimes, you give the direction and you just walk away, but then the people who you've given that direction to or have talked to don't really get it or are not ready. So it's also, I think now there has to be really something like check-ins with the organization and where they are in terms of change. How are they coping with the change? What are the things that they need to be able to support with the change? So it's a lot to do with that kind of communication. Also, being more of a people leader who listens, who spends time. I actually remember the line that said, to be able to go fast, you also need to go slow. And if you go slow, you get there faster. And so sometimes this may sound like a slower way to do things, but it's actually going to get there faster. If you have those conversations, there's more alignment that's happening. There's also giving space for people to air out what's important for them. And I think right now, that's what I actually kind of liked about the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic was bad in a way, but it was also good because I think it's transforming companies to be more caring about the people who are working with them. And so making it more people centric, not just focusing on the business strategy, but also on the people strategy. So going back to that leader I'm helping, that has helped him a lot cope with the change, and that has also helped him ground himself on the leader he needs to be, or the kind of leader he needs to be to the people who work for him. And it's been working a lot. So people have been listening more. They feel heard. They feel like he's giving them time to be able to just process all these changes together. So I think that's great. So it's getting really good business results as well.
Great. Thanks for sharing that specific example. I think what I like about what you said and what I caught there is that, when you thought that you're actually going slow, it's actually go fast. And it's because we're taking time to get the team's buy-in. And when we get their buy-in, just using the analogy of the sail, captain of the ship that you shared earlier, once you get their buy-in, they're gonna go on board with you and they're gonna help you row to the other side and navigate through that change. You're not doing it alone as a leader. But yes, it takes conscious effort, right? To pause and to engage with your team, have those conversations, and to Jack's point, to listen, to actively listen to your employees. I want to pivot a bit. There's a question here from the audience. And this is not really, about you as a leader, but looking at it like it could be you as a leader working with another leader or maybe with a colleague. And the exact question goes like this: how can we help steer old school bosses, like traditional ones, to adapt and become a leader that is needed by today's workforce to help in the growth of the business? I think, I think the audience is agreeing that, yeah, it's true. We need to be more caring, we need to be more authentic, but the reality is that not everyone is experiencing that. What is your advice to this employee, to this person? How can they help influence their boss? Do you want to go first, Jack?
Yes, that's a tough one. Old school doesn't well, it suggests a generational difference, and I admit that is common. But then, if you really think about it, I mean, I'm a baby boomer, but I think I have been, at least, I try every day to it's the same things that we've said in this session. Honest listening, showing a willingness to listen to the voices of your team members. I mean, whether you're old school or not so old, I think if you stick to those principles, and if you get the trust of your team as to what your motives are, I think that is my only, at the end of the day, you strip it all away, that's my leadership compass. So I think but I want to answer the question: how do you deal with this? I think expressing I think genuinely expressing your sentiments consistently is the first step. But it's not easy, because a lot of people are not as flexible as one would hope, especially in today's world of work. I think that's a tough one, but I think having a sincere conversation is the first step.
That takes courage, and that takes vulnerability and authenticity from the employee to go to the boss and share that too. Thanks, Jack. Anna, do you want to answer that question too?
I saw that question earlier, like, wow, that's a very good question. So it made me think. And my tip is actually, earlier I talked about James Clear's model, right, on motivation. So you have to be able to start with what is important for that person, and to be able to convince him to also see things in a different way, or respond in a different way. You have to tie it up to what is important. Who is this person? What's the profile? And what is important for him or her? And then you tie that up with the overall goal. And I'm just sharing that with you because that's how you make actually people change in coaching. And it really starts with the person itself. And I agree with you, Jack. It's being open. It's telling, maybe giving feedback to your boss, but maybe that might be also very kind of difficult and tricky, right? So maybe it's something that you can talk to HR about, give feedback for HR, and HR can help you with the leadership development, or you can hire an executive coach. So that's what we're here for. But it's also because it's a lot about deeper, deeper reflection, deeper work, tying it up to, again, what if you really want the organization to be this way. Let me give you an example. I'm working for this this company, and I'm coaching their top leaders. And so what's happening also is that they want so many changes, right? But then they don't want to change, right? So it's also convincing them that to be able to make the changes, you this has to change, because if you keep on doing the same thing, you'll always get the same results. But it's a process. It's a series of conversations. It's again going back to what motivates that person, what's the profile of the person, and using the language of that person to be able to show them the value of changing. So if you're going to give that direct feedback, I'd suggest that you profile your boss that way. And it's more of like being, how do you call this, customizing the conversation, being careful that way, so that the person that you're talking to, your boss, will be more responsive to hear you out.
Yeah, I agree with that. Not all leaders or managers or bosses come in the same shape and size. So you really, you really need to customize your approach accordingly. But that's why most of the time when a person is unhappy at work or decides to leave their workplace, it's really seldom about the job, but it's really more about
The leader.
who he or she reports to. So it's this has been going on for throughout the history of work. So
Mhm.
So that is, the impact of the leader, the employee. Yeah, and thanks for sharing those, and thanks for that question. There's another interesting question here that I want to bring up. We spoke about this earlier, and Anda said it in her presentation that where is it? I have it here in my notes. Something about, yeah, a quote that she shared at the beginning: what you resist persists, and what's really important is, move towards acceptance. Okay, like some point you need to accept the changes that's going on. Now here's the question. To be an effective leader, how do you balance being true to your core and accepting change? I guess the situation here is that if the change is, something that goes against how you feel or what you believe, you want to be true to your core, but then there's change. How do you accept it? How do you reconcile that tension?
Mm.
Another good and tough question, right?
Very good question. Makes us think. So no, I like tough questions. Um, so you're okay. I'm just trying to understand the question. So you're it's okay. So it's being true to your core, but then there's some demands from the organization to be a certain way. Is that what it is, or to change a certain way?
Yeah, I think we can only just, allude to that. Like, it was that this is the question exactly. How do you balance being true to your core and accepting change? So I guess we can guess that the change isn't consistent with probably your own values, your own principles to your core.
Hmm. Well, okay, let me try to answer that. So Jack's also thinking. Yeah. So I think for me, okay, it's not aligned to your core, but there's some parts of the change where you can still find meaning, right? There's still maybe there's certain parts of the change where um like the things that you value, the things who you are as a person, you can still find ways to be able to work with that change, right? And maybe not all of it is aligned to how you are, who you are. But I'd like to also say that um, if it's not aligned to who you are, I always think that work should be an extension of yourself. Work should be extension of who you are, what you believe in. And if it's not, it's like a relationship. So you have to think whether is this helping me grow? Is this aligned to the impact I want to create? And if it's not, maybe you have to make some hard decisions. But that doesn't have to be the solution all the time. So I'm saying like maybe to be able to deal with those changes, if you're there, is to just try to find meaning or certain ways to make the impact that you want. Maybe it's not like exactly the way that you want, but I think it's finding just more avenues or more other ways, and just being more creative and finding the parts that'll mean a lot to you, right? So I hope that's clear.
Thanks, Anda.
The way I interpret that question is maybe a little bit different. It 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 sounded to me that maybe a corporate decision has already been made, and maybe uh, the majority of the company team members don't agree with this decision, and I think what needs to be done in that case is for the leader uh, to be able to ensure that the team members uh, voices are heard, and then find the language to explain why that decision is necessary. And many times, I mean, unpopular decisions are common, and I think part of the skill set of a leader is number one, this is the third time I'm saying it. Ensure that the team members' voices are heard. I think that's the most important. And then second, find that language to explain that this is a business, and the owners of the business, the decision makers, whoever they are, have already made this decision, and just explain it in that way. And because not all decisions will be popular or be agreed to by the by one's team members. And so to me, what is the core of the leader is really being able to do those two things: listening to the voice of the team members, and then also on the flip side, because we all have principles that we report to, communicate that decision of the principal to the team as best as you can. And that's really the best you can do, unless you're the owner of the company. But at the end of the day, we are all running businesses that have ultimate decision makers.
That is where you agree to disagree, right? Like as
Yeah.
a leader. The decision has been made. Yeah, go on.
No, I just wanted to add something, because that's another take to the question, because I was trying to understand the question also. I think it's also, as a leader, it's your relationship with change. So it's a good question to ask yourself, like, what is my relationship with change, and how do I deal with difficult changes that are happening? And like what Jack was saying, it's not just about you managing that change, it's also helping your team manage the change as well. Yeah. So
And
if you
that is,
yeah, sorry.
go on,
I
Anna.
mean, I'm just saying, if you understand that what your real relationship with change is, and if you find it very difficult, then maybe those are the hard questions you ask yourself. So how do I just be friends with change, or how do I just adapt to change, or how do I make it better for me, or what are my barriers to change?
Yeah, you mentioned a point that really got me. It's that it's not just about you as a person, as a leader, getting the buy-in of what the organizational changes are. It is also how you communicate it to your team. And often that's a tough one, right? Especially if you are agreeing to disagree, because you need to make sure that you're able to articulate it still honestly, still authentically, but then being able to address the questions of your team and still having them on board. But I guess this is also one thing that I got from Jack. If things are shaky, if not everyone has that buy-in, be comfortable right there at that point. It takes time. Things will be shaky. It takes time. Allow it. Maybe, hopefully, in time, we'll see the result. We'll appreciate it as well. If not, then it goes back to what Anda said. Go back to your core. Go back to your values. Go back to your principle. If you're not compromising anything, you're still being true to yourself, then well and good. You can move on with that. If not, that's where what Jack said, it's a tough decision. Sometimes at one point, you need to make that tough decision as well, not just as a leader, but as a person yourself. This has been great, really. I want to just wrap up with one question. What is that one advice you want to give the audience? We have hundreds of leaders in the room going through change, needing to be comfortable through change. What is one advice that you can give them?
Okay, for me, I think be who you think you should be, and not who you think others think you should be. I mean, we have this, and I go through this almost every day. I have this weight of expectations from the different stakeholders that I deal with, and I think the best thing that I can do is to be who I really want to be, and to make the best decision that I can make at that particular moment, knowing that it may not be the best decision, later on, and just have the confidence to march on, because because you can't always get it right. So don't try to be what you think others want you to be, because that's overthinking it, and sometimes you just need to trust yourself at any given moment in time, and that's really the best you can be.
Yeah. There's just humility and there's also security as a leader and as who you are as a person. Thanks, Jack. And
I want to say that authentic leadership takes courage, right? It takes courage to be yourself. It takes courage to stand up for what you believe in. It takes courage to be true. And we always have that push and pull of the expectations and environment around us. So I think going back to what Jack said also, it's you have to really know who you are. You have to really know what you want also. And it's about in this busy world, it's clearing out the noise. What's the noise that shouldn't be there, that's affecting me, that's affecting my decisions? What are those things that trigger me? So I think if that's clear, and you're left with yourself, right? Remember March 2020, that's what happened when the pandemic started. We were left with ourselves. So there's a lot of truths we needed to face. There's a lot of noises that were just set aside. So I think it's living like that every single day, living with courage, living with who you are, respecting yourself, but not just yourself, but even helping the people around you live, be authentic also, be authentic as a team and as an organization.
thank you, and for me, it's to know and accept yourself, like consistent with what everyone's saying. You need to know, and you also need to accept yourself, who you are. And I guess the last point that I have is be kind to yourself as well. It's tough being, yeah, it's not easy. That's the truth. It's fulfilling, yeah, but it's not easy. So be kind to yourself. It must start within us. It must start with yourself before you can do the same thing for your team. If we are to extend that listening ear to our team, extend that listening ear, give that to yourself as well. Reflect on those things, listen to what your own voice is saying, and yeah, accept yourself. Then that's how you'll be able to lead authentically. Thank you so much, Jack, and I had fun, and this has been a meaningful conversation. I think like what Jack said in our briefing, this could just turn into a series, a lot to talk about. Thank you. Back to you, Zoe.
Wonderful. Thank you, Coach and Jack and Tony. Everyone, if we could just say thank you in the chat, that was an amazing conversation. And even if we discussed a lot, as Jack mentioned earlier, we could just go on and on for hours, right? So you can find our speakers on LinkedIn to continue following their journeys. And these last few moments will be shared to share a little, will be used to share a little bit more about our certified community, what organizations Great Place to Work has partnered with. Why is our mission so important? How does it align with navigating change as an authentic leader? So everyone wants to hire great talent. Everyone wants their organization to be better for business, better for your current employees, and better for your customers, whether you're working B2B, B2C. And as we've talked about in this webinar, when a company has great workplace culture, that resonates all throughout the chain. We've proven this. So on screen are the many organizations we've certified in the past year and counting. People talk about your company without you asking because it's genuine, and we've seen this. That's called employer branding. And credibility elevates your employer brand. It makes you desirable. It makes people want to work for you, work with you, be in your company, be associated with you. We give you that globally recognized credibility. We give you the one badge to rule them all, as we like to joke. So getting certified is not a complicated process, but we understand that this is new for a lot of companies, especially in our country. So we regularly host free sessions to demo our software and expedite your questions, like a live FAQ. Then your HR manager or point of contact selects a 2-week period to run your survey. And we actually had a good question in the audience earlier. How do you get your employers' feedback about your employees' feedback about your leadership? How do you know how you're doing? How might you assess your culture? So at Great Place to Work, we are powered by something called the Trust Index model. Tony talked about this earlier. Credibility, respect, fairness, pride, and camaraderie. These are the 5 dimensions of a great workplace backed by 30 years worth of research. So we have something called the Trust Index survey, and it takes less than 20 minutes to answer. Like I mentioned earlier, it's as short as your break, but as potent as your coffee. You can do it on your laptop. You can do it on your phone. It's not an inconvenience for your employees. And then you fill out a culture brief, which is a questionnaire to tell us who you are. What is your company all about? Are you an affiliate? Do you have a parent company? What is your biography, the basics? And when your survey closes, you get your results in real time. And then you actually get to find out, are you excelling in company pride? Perhaps the gap in your culture is respect. We have in-house consultants that we work with regularly to help you make informed decisions, help you make sense of your results, what your people are saying, so that you're equipped to take action for your people. Your people are the backbone of your company. They deserve the best. They deserve the best, as Jack said. So let's say you've launched this survey in your company, you've passed our global threshold. Our global threshold is the point at which employees believe you're a great workplace. You get a trademark certification badge similar to what you're seeing on screen. And you can use that to recruit, celebrate, advertise, and instill pride within your organization. Your vibe attracts your tribe. The more people know how much you value employee engagement, the more you attract people of value. So please feel free to screenshot the QR code to learn more. Now, certification is our main offering. And Jack, I'm going to come and call you back on stage. What makes it interesting is the byproduct of getting certified. So as I mentioned, we are the data scientists behind the coveted Fortune 100 Best Companies to Work For list. But we also have local equivalents that you can aspire for. So our upcoming list that's still open to those who have yet to be certified is our inaugural industry list. This is very exciting. It's called Philippines Best Workplaces in IT BPM, and this is a collaboration with IBPAP. So Jack, I would love if you said a few words.
Thank you, Zoe. I'm very excited about this partnership between IBPAP and Great Place to Work because it's an opportunity to highlight the best of the best workplaces in our industry. And I know amongst our membership and even those who are not IBPAP members, there are countless great places to work, and they deserve visibility, they deserve attention, and they deserve a space to share their success stories, because we can only learn from that for the advancement of our industry and also for the country, because we deserve to be able to hear the voices of the 1.5 million employees of the IT BPM industry. So I'm really looking forward to the partnership. And then when we launch this in July later this year, over 100 of our member companies have already registered, and I would like to see an even greater number be participating and to be highlighted to identify the top best workplaces in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. As Jack, piggybacking on what he said, we are trying to raise the standard of work. And this is one way that we're trying to do it. So if you'd like to read more about the requirements, deadlines, and why this is such a milestone, not just for us, but for the country, please screenshot the QR code to learn more. So our upcoming event, thank you so much, Jack, is 18 days away, actually. It's called Philippines Best Workplaces 2023. This is our leading national list. Now, companies who were certified last year in 2022, some of you were in the audience, you guys are eligible, you know about this list. And after 3 years, we're finally having an in-person gala at Hilton Manila this March 21. Why am I sharing this if the list is not open? Because if you are after recognition, if you want to show people, hey, we have a great workplace culture, this is the list to aspire for in 2024. And our community is so supportive that tickets are already sold out. But if you'd like to make your preparations, you want to download the Insights Report. What did we learn from 2022? Watch the previous year's virtual reveal. Please screenshot the QR code to learn more, or follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Great Place to Work Philippines. Now, my name is Zoe Rosal. I'm the marketing business partner for Great Place to Work Philippines. Thank you so much for taking precious time out of your day to learn how to navigate change as an authentic leader. All of you right now have the capacity to unlock that. And remember, just be brave, be courageous, take your learnings and practice it as quick as you can, consistently. If you'd like to support us and the speakers, please answer the short survey that we'll launch afterwards. Your feedback means a lot, even if it's just to say hello, even if it's just to give our speakers a little bit of a pat on the back, they would appreciate that. So with that out of the way, thank you so much, and may you have a greater day ahead.